Not every motorcycle is meant to be a legend, and these 13 are some of the worst Harley-Davidsons ever made. While the brand is celebrated for its iconic motorcycles, there's a few models that missed the mark completely. Some suffered from poor engineering, others were riddled with reliability issues, and a few had downright unworkable designs. But let's go take a look at it. Number 13, 1981 Sportster. Now listen, I got a soft spot for Sportsters. They're light, they're nimble, and if you're moving through city streets, they can be a blast. But if you're thinking about long highway rides, yeah, good luck with that. Take this thing up to 80 miles an hour for a few hundred yards, and you will be feeling every single mile in your bones. Now, why is this bike considered one of the worst? Let's start with the Ironhead engine. These things were known for their oil leaks. If you parked your bike and didn't see a puddle underneath it, you were either out of oil or just really lucky. Then there's the electrical system. Unreliable wiring meant breakdowns were pretty much a part of the ownership experience. Handling, yeah, not great. The top-heavy stance and stretched-out front end didn't do it any favors, and the suspension, if you could even call it that, felt like it was designed to punish your spine. Number 12, Livewire. An electric motorcycle, because nothing screams Harley-Davidson like silence. Harley's been around for over 116 years, and people buy their bikes for the look, the feel, and most importantly, the sound. That deep, rumbling V-twin is as much part of the brand as the name itself. So when they rolled out an electric bike, the core audience was not impressed. But even if we ignore that, Livewire was doomed for another reason. The price. At $29,700, it was nearly double the cost of a Zero SR, a competitor that outperformed in weight, power, and torque. That's right, Harley came into a fight with a knife, and Zero showed up with a bazooka. Shortly after launch, Harley had to halt production and deliveries due to a charging equipment failure. Their solution? Telling customers to use only DC fast chargers. The problem? Those are not easy to find. If you needed to plan your route based on where you could charge your $30,000 bike, it just wasn't worth it. Even Hollywood-level PR stunts like Ewan McGregor and Charlie Borman using Livewires on their long-distance adventure series couldn't save it. Number 11, Harley-Davidson Electra Glide. Man, sometimes you come across a bike that makes you stop and wonder, what were they thinking? And the 2014 Harley-Davidson Electra Glide's one of those bikes. This thing was supposed to be a solid touring machine, but instead it became infamous for its mechanical headaches that had owners regretting their purchase. Let's start with the big one, clutch issues. This wasn't just some minor annoyance. It led to a massive recall of over 45,000 bikes in 2015. The clutch wasn't disengaging properly, and if you know anything about motorcycles, you know that is a big problem. Imagine rolling to a stop and suddenly realizing your clutch is not doing its job. Yeah, not exactly the confidence boost you want on a long ride. And that wasn't the only recall. In total, this model racked up about 5 recalls, with complaints piling up at NHTSA. Braking issues, engine problems, you name it, Electra Glide had it. Now, I was never a big fan on Electra Glides to begin with, but if I had to go with a touring bike, I'd take a Goldwing, a Victory, or an Indian over this any day. Number 10. If it feels cheap, it probably is. And when it comes to the Harley-Davidson Street 500 and 750, that feeling isn't just an illusion, it's reality. Harley wanted to step into the 750cc and under market, a space that's long been dominated by Japanese manufacturers. And let's just say it has not gone well. These bikes seem to carry a dark cloud wherever they go. Maybe it's their questionable build quality, maybe it's performance issues, or maybe it's the massive worldwide recall for, you guessed it, brake failures. Harley has been making motorcycles since 1903, and they still can't get the brake systems right? What is going on there in engineering? Between 2016 and 19, street owners reported brakes that dragged, corrosion around key components, and in some cases, crashes that led to injuries. And you know what that means? Lawsuits and lots of them. Harley claims the problems have been fixed, but would you really take that gamble? If you're looking for a 750cc cruiser, there are better options. Honda Shadow, solid. Yamaha Bolt, absolutely. But the Street 500 and 750, yeah, not so much. If you're gonna slap the Harley badge on a bike, it better live up to the name, and this one just doesn't. Number 9. Man, have you heard the saying, keep your mechanic on speed dial? Well, if you've got a 2005 Harley-Davidson Softail DeLuxe, that phrase becomes less of a joke and more of a lifestyle. Now, let's get one thing straight. Harley riders know that at some point every bike needs a little love under the wrench, but the Softail DeLuxe, This thing came with problems right out of the gate, and if you weren't paying attention, your wallet was about to get a serious workout. The main culprit? That twin cam engine, specifically the cam chain tensioners. Harley, in all their infinite wisdom, decided to go with plastic shoes on these things. And guess what happens when plastic rubs up against metal at high speeds? Yeah, they wear down fast, like really fast. So fast that by the time you get to 25,000 miles, you could be looking at catastrophic engine failure if you didn't catch it in time. And if those plastic shoes do break, you're not just replacing a part, you are looking at a whole new engine. That's a repair bill that makes even the most die-hard Harley fan question their life choices. Number 8. Harley-Davidson V-Rod. This was supposed to be Harley's answer to the younger generation, riders who weren't into baggers, ape-hangers, or the whole classic cruiser look. Instead, they wanted something fast, aggressive, and modern. And for a moment, Harley actually delivered. The 2006 VRSC SC2 was a standout. It had a sleek, muscular design, a low stance, and a top speed of 127 miles an hour. That's not just fast for a Harley, that is fast, period. But the real kicker, the engine. This wasn't your typical air-cooled V-twin. No, this was a liquid-cooled, high-revving beast developed in collaboration with Porsche. Yes, you heard that right. Porsche helped build this thing. It was smooth, it was powerful, and it could keep up with sportier competition. So what happened? Well, in classic Harley fashion, they had something good and then they threw it all away. Despite the potential, V-Rod never really got the love it deserved. Hardcore Harley fans weren't interested in a sporty cruiser, and newer riders looking for speed were still turning to sport bikes. Sales weren't great, and instead of improving the formula, Harley discontinued the whole lineup in 2017. Just like that, the V-Rod was gone. Number 7. Harley-Davidson CVO. They are insanely expensive. Take the 2023 CVO model, for example. It starts at around $52,000 before you even factor in the dealer fees, taxes, and any additional accessories. That's a steep price for what is, at its core, still a Harley. Now, if you're looking at the used market, CVOs do hold their value better than a standard Harley. But here's the catch. Whether you're buying new or used, these bikes come with major ownership headaches. The first problem, the paint. The paintwork is one of the defining features of a CVO, but Harley-Davidson doesn't even paint these in-house. They contract out the work to specialty paint shops, which means each run is made in extremely limited numbers. So if you damage a panel, good luck getting a replacement. Once a specific paint set's discontinued, it's gone. Owners have to resort to finding skilled painters to recreate the finish, a very expensive and time-consuming process. And if you think swapping to a custom paint job is the solution, think again. Changing the original CVO paint can drastically reduce the bike's resale value. These motorcycles are all about exclusivity, and once you alter that, the VIN no longer matches the factory specs, making it less desirable to collectors and enthusiasts. It's not just the paint. Anything you change, exhaust, fairings, even the windshield, can hurt the bike's value. Exhaust is a great example. Many CVO models come with Screamin' Eagle mufflers and special finishes that aren't available in the aftermarket. If you replace them with standard black or chrome pipes, the bike loses one of its key selling points. Number 6. Harley-Davidson Fat Boy. You think with a name like Fat Boy, this thing would be solid, big, and built like a tank. And while it does have the weight, the reality is it's got issues, and these aren't just little quirks you can overlook. No, this has got problems that make you wonder if Harley was asleep at the wheel when they put it together. First, let's talk about that oil situation. If you get a used bike, changing the oil should be the first thing on a to-do list. Why? Because trusting a seller's word is about as reliable as trusting a weatherman's weekend forecast. The bike was supposed to have had a fresh oil change just 1,000 miles ago, but when that drain plug came off, what came out was sludge. Thick, dark, neglected sludge. That's not normal. That's not 1,000 miles. And then you got the speedometer. Useless. Good luck knowing how fast you're going when the gauge has a mind of its own. And this wasn't just a one-off issue either. Plenty of owners have complained about this. Number 5. Harley-Davidson Sprint 350. The Harley-Davidson Sprint 350 is a textbook example of why the AMF era nearly tanked the brand. Designed to compete with the smaller, more efficient Japanese motorcycles of the time, it failed spectacularly. This wasn't just a bad Harley, it was a bad motorcycle, period. First, the engine. The 354cc four-stroke single was weak, sluggish, and prone to overheating. It lacked the power expected from a Harley, making it a chore to ride. And if you managed to get it started, which was a challenge in itself, you were greeted with vibrations so intense they made your hands go numb within minutes. Riders complained that the Sprint 350 felt more like a punishment than a ride. Then there was design. Instead of the bold, unmistakable Harley-Davidson styling, the Sprint 350 looked kind of like an uninspired knockoff. Bland lines, poor assembly, and zero personality. It lacked the presence that Harley riders loved, making it feel like an afterthought rather than a serious attempt at a lightweight motorcycle. It wasn't just one issue, it was everything. Number 4. Harley-Davidson and scooters, two things that should have never mixed. But in the early 60s, Harley thought they could take on the Vespa and Lambretta crowd with a topper. Spoiler alert, they could not. The topper was powered by a 165cc two-stroke engine, putting out a miserable 9 horsepower. That alone wasn't the issue. Plenty of scooters had small engines. The problem, it was loud, slow, and inefficient. Being a two-stroke, you had to mix your oil with gas, so every ride smelled like burning oil. And let's not forget, it had to be kick-started. Imagine trying to look cool kicking a scooter to life while Italian scooters zip past effortlessly. Then there's the belt drive system. Unlike chain-driven competition, Harley went with a belt that was notorious for slipping. If it failed you, you weren't just dealing with bad performance, you were stuck. And the worst part, it happened often. Number 3, the SX250. Harley tried to jump into the off-road scene with this single-cylinder dirt bike, but it was doomed from the start. The 250cc two-stroke engine, made in partnership with Yamaha, had major reliability problems, carburetor flooding, inconsistent power delivery, and an engine that just couldn't keep up on rough terrain. And then there was the suspension, or rather, the lack of it. Instead of absorbing bumps and jumps, it sent every jolt straight to the rider, making long rides miserable. It wasn't just bad, it was unrideable for what it was meant to do. Number 2. The 1981 Harley-Davidson Sturgis, a belt-driven Harley named after the legendary rally that should have been a hit but ended up being a disaster. The 80 cubic inch shovelhead engine was notorious for oil leaks, overheating, and violent vibrations that could shake parts loose. Riders reported constant stalling even after professional tuning. But the real issue? That belt drive. While Harley was trying something new, the early system just wasn't reliable. Belts snapped under stress or it wore down quickly, leaving riders stranded. Combine that with low build quality of the AMF years, and you had a bike that no one could trust for long-distance riding. Number 1. The Confederate Edition. Released in 1977, this bike was already controversial thanks to the Confederate flag slapped on the tank. But even if you ignored the branding, it was a mechanical mess. Underneath the special edition paint, it was just stock Electra Glide, powered by the same unreliable 1200cc shovelhead engine. That meant endless oil leaks, overheating, and breakdowns. It wasn't a special bike, it was just another AMF-era Harley with a bad paint job and an even worse reputation. 13 bikes, 13 big mistakes. Which one do you think's worst?